Welcome viewers. The killer lied. Henry died. The knife disappeared. Henry Nowak's death is not only horrific because he was a young man stabbed to death, it's horrific because while Henry was dying, the story around him was already being poisoned. He was bleeding. He was bleeding and pleading. He reportedly said he had been stabbed and could not breathe. We saw it. Yet the lie moved faster than the wound. The killer, his accusation, entered the scene. The responders heard it. And the dying victim, he would have become suspicious. And the man who needed rescue was treated as the problem. Reports say police initially treated Henry as the aggressor, while Digwa's false claim of radical abuse shaped the first response. Now, many of you watching this will remember the Bondi massacre in Sydney. Now, what's happened there? The man that got the gun off the father before he was shot, he got $2.6 million in a GoFundMe. Right. Now I'm talking about the nature of families. Now his family's taken him to court with lies and schemes to extort money out of him, extort money out of him. So one of the confusions of that was, we've got a Muslim man stopping a Muslim man from killing innocent people, primarily Jews. Then the Muslim man gets $2.6 million in GoFundMe assets, and then the reality of the nature behind the man comes to fruition because his family are now trying to extort money out of him. For those of you that don't know, they're trying to extort his money. So we come back to this argument about the real nature of Islam, right? And my understanding of Islam is not good for Islamists or Muslims, because you have to base it on the founder. And the founder was a liar, a cheat, a schemer, a pedophile, and completely doctrinally, theologically wrong. He was so wrong that the people of the book said, we just can't associate with you. He was completely morally bankrupt, Muhammad. And people jumped on board with that, no different to them jumping on board with Hitler. And together they conspired and created organisations that were destructive and evil and wrong. Now, this is what was going on in Digwa's family. They had a dying man. All they had to do was rush around saying, look, we've stabbed him, we've made a mistake, we've done it, we've got to save him. They didn't. They let him, they just stood there defending themselves while he died. And the man who needed rescue was treated as the problem. Reports say police initially treated Henry as the aggressor, while Digwa's false claim of racial abuse shaped the first response. The case must be understood in layers of evil: murder, deception, evidence, concealment, victim blaming and emergency, disbelief, police misjudgment and deception, an institutional language that still appeared tempted to point suspicion back at Henry. I just want to say, viewers, we're living in a very unstable Western world now. Because if police are arriving at murder scenes and somebody's dying right in front of them and they can't tell, that can't be trusted. The politicians, they can't be trusted. They just can't be trusted. You've got to go on their merit. They just can't be trusted. So the first evil was physical. A young man was stabbed multiple times. His life was taken before adulthood had fully even started. And this is where the outrage begins, not with political caution, not with public relations language, with Henry. Henry. With blood, with death. Number 2, the lie. The second evil was narrative. The killer did not merely stab Henry, he spoke over Henry. He constructed blame while Henry was losing the ability to defend himself. He constructed the whole thing, the killer. False accusation became a second weapon. The blade attacked Henry's body, but the lie attacked Henry's name and person. The lie was probably what really killed Henry, because if people had have been honest, Henry would have lived. Remember, the scripture says that the devil comes to kill, steal and destroy, and he's the father of lies. These people had no conscience about lying to save themselves while Henry died right in front of them. When Henry said, "I've been stabbed," and the policeman said, "No, we're not sure about, we don't think you have," the killer should have said, "Yeah, I've stabbed him," but he didn't, did he? And this is because the fact of the matter is, they would have found out once they got him in the ambulance that he actually has been stabbed and who did it. But they let him die. That's a horrible way to die. Knowing that he could have been saved. What sort of civilization are we living in now? I'll tell you what it is. It's the Middle East coming into the West. Henry was not sitting in a courtroom with time to answer. He was dying. He was dying. He had seconds, breath, panic, pain and confusion. And around him, responders were proceeding and processing with a story that pointed the finger back at Henry. And that's a profound moral injury. To die is terrible. To die while being doubted by people that should have believed. To watch the police believe the killer. Can you understand the defeat that man must have felt in his mind? To die while the criminal's narrative is being entertained is almost impossible to absorb. Movement number 4, the deceived rescue system. The deceived rescue system. And we're seeing more and more of it every day now. More and more of how unsafe the government is, how corrupt the governments are, the politicians, and how the police just aren't, in some cases, able to do their job. Emergency response exists to protect life before narrative, but in this case, the rescue environment appears to have been contaminated by lies. The people who should have seen the wound, the breathlessness, the collapse and the distress were pulled into the gravitational field of the killer's life. What are you going to do now? You going to sit here? Yeah. But this exposes how evil spreads. One lie can misdirect an entire scene. So what we're seeing now is a public system that can't even tell the difference between truth and lies, because they're told to believe lies. The left narrative, the middle right, the far right, and all this. Nobody seems to know what's going on because they're not focusing on the truth. One false accusation can reorder the urgency. One wrong assumption can turn a victim into a suspect. We've seen it now. The disappearing knife. Then the weapon disappeared. Digwar's mother, Karan Kaur, was convicted of assisting an offender after hiding the murder weapon, according to reports. And this is the next evil. Not panic, not confusion, concealment. The crime did not end with the stabbing. It continued through evidence removal. The official finger still pointed, but it pointed at Henry, even though the other guy, the murderer, was convicted and found guilty and convicted. The latest outrage is that police reportedly considered language that still framed Henry as the aggressor before the wording was changed after pushback from the parents, apparently. And that matters because the lie almost survived the scene. It almost entered the public record. So let me close. Henry was stabbed. Henry was accused. Henry was disbelieved. Henry was handcuffed. Henry died. The knife disappeared, and the official system still seemed tempted to ask what Henry had done wrong. And that's the full evil spin. Not only murder followed by narrative corruption, murder followed by concealment, murder followed by institutional misdirection. The Crim lied, Henry died, the knife disappeared, and the truth had to fight its way past the very people who should have recognised it and defended it right from the start. That just shows you what we're up against. Moral bankruptcy. Moral bankruptcy.